welcome to the show, Colette Davenport. I'm so happy that you're here today. And Colette is a metaphysicist, best known for developing a technology that gives the user inner peace. Her highly individualized, world-renowned tech is the foundation of the Paz Protocol, which she designed to provide influential individuals the most efficient means of finding and sustaining peace amidst the pressures of public life. In addition to private advisory, corporate workshops, and keynote presentations, Colette is the host of the Paz Project, a podcast and movement to bring peace to the hearts of the people in charge. What a phenomenal mission, because who needs it more, right?
Girl, we're going straight to the top so that the, so that the impact can trickle down as it always does.
As it always does. Tell me how you got there. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, you bet. I have always been a philosopher, even before I had any idea what that was. And somebody that would spend a lot of time in self-reflection and in nature, and again, before I knew it, the benefits of it to our well-being and things of this nature. That was just part of my nature. And like a lot of us who are in the entrepreneurial space, oh, by the way, I've also been an entrepreneur since I was 8. So someone who sort of figures it out since I was 8, well, I grew up in South San Antonio, so we didn't sell lemonade, like a lemonade stand. We sold snow cones, and the Spanish word for snow cone is raspa. So I sold raspas as an 8-year-old. Yeah, and
cool.
So I've been this, curious, adventurous, self-sufficient person my entire life, and it's not always been easy. There's been a lot of challenges, and as a result of that, I've needed to find something to sustain a sense of groundedness amidst the chaos, right? I've had some big life challenges, not least of which is this brainstem tumor that is benign. I'm totally fine, but it totally changed my life, as you can imagine. If it were to be removed and the operation would cause the right side of my tongue to be paralyzed. So I'm a speaker.
Wow.
And just a lot of things would change. I'd rather live with a cosmetic issue because it's, again, it's not impacting anything. It did impact my vanity 13 plus years ago when it came on the scene. But anyway, my point is there have been some life challenges that have called forth this need to find a centeredness. And business has been one of them. My health has been one of them. Of course, I've had the relationship one too. But so throughout this lifelong journey, I come to realize, in hindsight, just in my 40s, in recent years, I've come to realize that my superpower, so to speak, is the ability to remain relatively centered amidst vast uncertainty. And because of these challenges along the way, and I know we all have them, I just, again, being that philosopher, seeking the depth of understanding and needing to get to the truth of it all, kind of thing. What underlies this issue? What's the source of this struggle that I'm in? Being that, that way, I suppose, led me to developing a very specific metaphysical technology that allows me, and then now for the last 10 years with my clients, to access inner peace in a way that is reliable, it's rapid, it shifts the paradigm so that we're able to see the circumstance that may be challenging us from a higher perspective, a higher consciousness, if you will. And so from all of that, the Paz Project, which is part movement to bring peace to the hearts of the people in charge, and part upcoming podcast. I've had a podcast in the past talking about higher consciousness. This is we'll call this the evolution of that conversation, such that I'll be interviewing the corporate leaders, business moguls, visionary entrepreneurs, public figures, those that, again, have this high profile public platform from which, when they are in this state of grace, if you will, anything they say and do will be, projected and create an impact just by them showing up and sharing a photo of this or dropping a comment around that. Like, all of those simple things that they're already doing will have infused within them a sense of peace, a sense of groundedness, because we all know there's a bunch of uncertainty happening. And just, getting tangled up in that uncertainty, that chaos, isn't like the best use of our time. But finding centeredness in the uncertainty is a great use of our time. So the Paz Project is in service to that.
That's great. And so obviously we're very aligned because I also love to work with people who are maybe already comfortable with let's say, an elevated level of influence, because this transformation that trickles down, right, can move faster with people who are in a position to influence more people and influence more people. That's what it's all about. And the way that you describe, having peace in your heart, well, maybe I should ask you, like, say more about that. Say more about what it means to have peace in your heart for you.
For me, peace is our nature. It's what underlies, so to speak, all of the activity of our persona. So our roles, our responsibilities, our past experiences, our hopes for the future, all of these are the activity of the persona. But at the center, so to speak, is peace. Okay, it's our nature. It's our divinity. You could say it's the quality of God or source energy, or kind of whatever language you like to use for that. I think we're all saying the same thing. But once I discovered that is who I ultimately am, if we stripped away all that I tend to identify with, what would remain is peace, or my divinity. So once I discovered that for myself through lots of self-reflection and, of course, studying, spiritual traditions and various, like, a lot of things, a lot of pathways to arrive at this understanding of myself as essentially peace. And the recognition that is what we all are, who we all are. Essentially, we share this peace with one another and all that is. So when I talk about this metaphysical technology that gives the user, that's the key, you got to use it, not conceptual. We can't just think these things and expect to experience inner peace. Because the thoughts are still activity of the persona. So we actually have to quiet the activity. We have to surrender, exit, if you will, go beyond. That's why metaphysical, beyond the physical, right? If the activity is a physical, even though it's a thought form, it's still form. But the activity of our mind, the concepts, the thoughts about the intellectual understanding is not it. And so this technology that I've developed gives us direct access to our divinity, primarily characterized by peace. And honestly, Tracy, it's the thing that I see missing from just about every single spiritual path that I've been on, that I've,
I agree.
that I like, the lack of knowing self as peace, or God, or divine, or however you want to language that and that we share that same divinity with every other person and all things like that, it's hard for us to wrap our minds around because our minds are inherently dualistic. They need the duality to exist, which is why this technology takes us beyond that dualistic perception paradigm to the very source of our being, which is peace. And once we know this, and I mean know this not intellectually, but know it through experience, it's, you can't unknow it. It's now known, you know? And so it causes a shift. You start thinking differently, perceiving differently, having different responses to certain situations, and so on. So peace is
I hear you.
paramount.
I hear you about that, how our minds try so hard to intellectualize this shift, right? And that's where I come to this work from, that I have a very active and powerful mind, as many people do. But I hear people talking about, like, you know, dropping into their body and just, you know, feeling this feeling in their body or whatever. And I was always like, I don't even know what that means. I can't get to that. I can't get to that. And so, I mean, like yourself, I was very much driven or inspired by the idea of getting there. I mean, we both have a technology, you know, the idea is to get there, to kind of bypass your busy mind, which is a function of your persona, like you just said, you know, and get to that place where the chatter goes away, the duality goes away. And if I can say, that place of peace that you're talking about is where the limitless potential lies, because there's no noise about whatever would impede you from having infinite potential. There's no content about anything in the way.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's contentless, which means from that infinite, limitless space, we have choice. So we can choose simply from a peaceful, loving, creative desire, if you will. We can choose what we create, how we respond, and choosing from that all choices space is different than reacting from the content, where there are somewhat like perceived limits for how we're able to respond, what we're able to create, and so on.
We'll be right back with metaphysician Colette Davenport after this short break. Let's talk for just a moment about how thoughts are the activity of the persona, as Colette puts it. All the big spiritual traditions speak about quieting the mind. And it doesn't matter if you've been meditating for 80 years, it's still hard to do. Really, even experienced meditators just get better and better at catching themselves thinking when it starts, instead of riding the train of thoughts until you don't know how long you've been traveling, but you know you're far from where you wanted to be. Your persona, or your ego, or your small s self, however you like to think of it, does not want to give up control of its role. It is the absolute ruler of your life because it governs your unconscious mind, which is where pretty much everything is happening. That's all your conditioning, all your filters. It's how you see the world in front of you. It's how you interpret what comes in through your senses. This feels good, this feels bad. I like this taste, I don't like that one. I believe this, I don't believe that. All of that is unconscious, even if you're constantly finding ways to justify those things. Justifying, reasoning, believing, All of those things are basically shadow activities. The shadow is your unconscious mind at work trying to keep you safe and alive. That's its job. As a living organism, you have only two jobs: to survive and to reproduce. As humans in the 21st century, we can reproduce in other ways than creating babies, by our ideas, by our art. Our industry reproduces us in the world. And in many ways, it keeps us alive as well. It keeps us alive in the awareness of people who will benefit from what we make long after we're gone. Our beautiful, complex thinking minds are completely hijacked by this survival directive of shadow, which doesn't think in metaphors like the one I just gave you. It thinks that literally everything is an actual survival issue, like a loss of credibility or damage to your reputation. Those become things that your nervous system responds to as if you could actually die from them. Being humiliated feels like a life or death event. Bankruptcy, loss of a loved one, breakup of a relationship, all those things are not seen as situations that produce unpleasant but temporary feelings. They're seen as things that would finish you off. The truth is that the world is full of people who have experienced those things, and then they go back to living a productive, even a joyful life. It's like the character in a story or a movie you're watching who has to endure some real hardship, something you wouldn't wish on anyone. But then at the end, you're so proud of them for how they managed to bounce back. This is the human narrative. Shit happens. And getting over it is not a matter of luck. It's a matter of choice. Nobody ever wants to think they have a choice to be happy when their circumstances are not conducive to feeling good. But it is a choice. It's always a choice, because your feelings are produced by you and not by your circumstances. We have a way of saying, he made me so mad, or that made me feel really sad. Feelings are an important part of how we experience the richness of life, but we've always taken our own figure of speech for the reality of how it works. It does not work like that. Someone or something outside of you provides a trigger. That's an opportunity for you to respond to something from one of our 4 basic archetypal patterns or filters. The one that filters for clues about your worthiness, the one that seeks to orient you in the hierarchy in terms of authority or agency to get what you want. There's the one that sees things from a materialistic perspective, and the one that measures things and tries to make sense of everything. So every single input is like a trap. Everything that you see, hear, feel, taste, it's all just waiting for you to let it take charge of your emotions, which will then create a cascade of neurochemicals in your body that create actual tension or actual heat or shaking or clenching or whatever it might be. Nothing outside of you has any real value except for one that you assign to it. And that can only come from the filters that you perceive it through, those 4 filters I just mentioned. For example, some people love oysters. I personally can't even imagine eating one. Is there something objectively true about the taste of oysters? No, of course not. It's about me and about you and our filters. It doesn't matter what you pick. There's nothing objectively true about anything. A forest fire is terrible for people whose homes get destroyed, and it's great for the ecology of the forest that relies on heat to crack open pine cones and to create a perfect terrain for new growth and regeneration. And that all happens on a timeline that spans many human generations. 50 years is nothing to a forest. So now we come to the part about how to get rid of your filters. Maybe not getting rid of them. We want to gain mastery over them. We want to be able to use them or not use them as we desire, instead of living like helpless pawns of them. And this is exactly where space-time alchemy comes into the picture. Like I said, I was someone who struggled to get past that busy mind, no matter what kind of spiritual practice I tried. And shadow alchemy was the best that I'd come across. So this technology combines shadow alchemy with Bach flower essences in a way that nobody else has ever figured out how to do. So that basically they make your filters visible to you, and they let you take off those dirty sunglasses you've been wearing all your life. Because that's what it's like. You've been looking at the world through dirty sunglasses. You've never spent a day without them on. So of course, you think what you see is what the world really looks like. But if you want to grow and succeed exponentially, to create the exact legacy you desire, and to squeeze the most joy and fun out of your limited days on Earth, then you need to be able to perceive what's real, to make decisions based on what's real, not on illusions that you've been cultivating since forever. Because what's real is that your value is never in the hands of anyone else, and that you decide what happens in your body, and that nothing can touch you as long as you know that your feelings are always under your control. The truth is that your potential is without limits. And now, back to metaphysical advisor, Colette Davenport. What are the blocks to inner peace that you think are most present in individuals who are in these kind of higher leadership roles, people, public figures, or you know, political leaders or industry leaders? What are some of the things that would be common denominators for people in those positions?
Yeah. Well, the primary one is the belief in separation, right? Which is a worldview. In other words, it's where we're only seeing each other as separate, solid entities that are, I like to say, separate, solid, and slow to change. So if that's our worldview about ourselves, about each other, about the world, that's going to be the fundamental limiter to inner peace, is our worldview, our paradigm. Okay. But from a more, we'll call it marketable perspective, right? There's this need to control,
Right.
which is in direct response to, because I am separate from you, the world is separate from me, and there's only so much I can get, and I got to work hard to get it, and I got to defend it, and I got to mine, right? So that's a sort of a belief, if you will, that stems from the separation paradigm, is this need to control, and there's a finite amount of resource,
right?
And I'm gonna get mine before you get yours, so move out of the way, sucker, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so there's this need to control in response to that worldview, and then there's the need to prove, the proving of essentially worthiness or righteousness, and that word is often misused. Righteousness in the expansive context, in the esoteric context, is actually alignment, right? Righteousness in the more egoic context is I'm right, you're wrong,
right?
And so, but it's a proving of I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
It's right to attain some sense of worthiness. Worthiness of what is the question? Only the ego seeks worthiness. This, we'll call it our divinity for the sake of this conversation. Our divinity is by definition well, I'm not even going to say it's by definition worthy, because that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Right? The concept of worthiness doesn't even exist at that depth of our being. It's only this persona that seeks that, and therefore goes about trying to prove it. And boy, is that an uphill battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, if if someone who is a leader in some way, an influential person, a public figure, um, do they feel a need to leave what they're doing, that leave the public sphere in some way, if they would attain peace? Like if they've gotten to where they got by a lot of like shadow activity of their
Mm-hmm.
ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the result of your work going to be that they decide that they don't need to be that anymore, or does something else come online that allows them to lead in a infinitely more powerful way?
Yeah, great question. And in fact, to your earlier question, that fear of losing the edge, losing the positioning, destroying everything they've built is one of those more practical fears for people sort of wanting inner peace, but then just doing the surface stuff to get it for the moment, thinking that's it, again, intellectual, and not really going to the depths, if you will, of experiencing the true inner peace that we're talking
Yeah,
about here.
they
It's the
think they're
fear of
talking about being less stressed, like having
correct,
less stress and
correct.
feeling more chill.
Yeah,
That's not what you're talking about.
no, I'm not. Uh, and so you're absolutely spot on with that assessment that people think they're going to lose what they've built if they find true inner peace. And the answer that my response rather to that is that's not true. You don't have to sell all your possessions and move to the jungle of Peru to be at, to have, to experience, to express the peaceful nature. Uh, in fact, I have found I actually have sharpened my edge as this inner peace has begun to infiltrate other, my business and relationships and just my health and well-being, these other areas of life that you would think I'd be like, I got peace. I don't need shit no more.
Yeah.
Like that's not it. It's actually a focusing of my energy, my efforts, my conversations that I'm having with people. I now am not interested in those that are just, well, honestly, a lot of the shit that I used to be interested in, I'm no longer interested in. And as a result, I'm giving more time and attention to this passion, if you will, this purpose, the Paz
Right.
Project, bringing inner peace to the hearts of the people in charge, right? And so as a result, those are the conversations that I'm having, getting interviews like this, being invited to speak here and do that, and like come on board as this, advisor and things of that nature. And so the thing that I got clear about from that peaceful, I have full choice. So in a state of peace, in a state of grace, what do I choose? I choose this, right? This
Yeah.
work that I'm doing as an example. And so from that, the opportunities to express and experience more of my purpose, my gift, it's my passion, if you will, have come online. And yeah, some things have fallen by the wayside, but a lot of these things were things that I was holding on to before because I thought they made me appear a certain way, successful, professional,
Right.
whatever, right? And as I've fallen away, I just am like, oh, that shit didn't matter,
Right.
So it's a
That's
sharpening of the edge for things that
that
matter
that do matter, and you get to choose what matters.
completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
That's the
Whereas the
difference.
majority of the content, exactly, the majority of the content of our lives, public figures or stay-at-home moms, it doesn't matter, but the majority of the content of our lives is filled with all this well, conditioning, but all of this, other people's opinions, the way we were raised, the current status of our social status, you know what I mean? Like all
The
of this
things that you think are
external.
supposed to matter.
Yeah, yeah. And so some of that has fallen off, but I'm happier, more on point, more alive, more energetic, more deeply satisfied. And I mean, I still have a nice car. I still live in a nice home. Like I still have nice things, I didn't sell it all, and I'm not living in
Yeah.
the jungle.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the that piece about choosing what matters, choosing what you want to make matter, which I love that phrase, by the way. Like we have such interesting little sort of linguistic tricks that are so profound. Making something matter is really turning it from a thought into something real in your physical reality. You make it matter by making it important in your thoughts. You make it matter, even if what you're making is sort of um, biochemicals, like you're making neurochemicals in line with what you're thinking and feeling. You're making it matter. Those are real chemicals flowing in your body, that rage or anger or fear or lust or whatever it is. Your thoughts, you're making them matter, and they turn
Mhm.
into something. And I think the beauty of what you're doing is to bring people to a place where, as leaders, you know, they can they can delete a lot of stuff that doesn't matter and focus all of their power, their heightened power now, because your power isn't being, drained out of your tank by a lot of irrelevant ego stuff. Now you have this hyper power to focus on what matters to you. And I think for a lot of these, um, you know, high level leaders and public figures, there is legacy work to be done, and they can let go of whatever belongs to the, um, I don't know, the more superficial layers of achievement that they've come to, and have now a really pure vision for what their highest legacy work is, and to get on with it. Especially because, like, time's a ticking, time is the commodity that we can't create more of. And people who people who have already achieved at a high level could be 10xing, 100xing, million x what they've done until now, if they could come at it from this place of purity that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things. I completely agree with what you're saying. And I'm going to invite you to use the word we instead of they when you speak about high level leaders,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
are one. You are one.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just, reminding you, that, but I really want that to be a part of this conversation. It's a we conversation.
Yeah,
Simply by us showing up here and having this conversation puts us in the seat of high level leader. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, yes, there is the potential to 10x, 100x, create this more this exponential impact in a fraction of the time that we think, our persona thinks, other people think it can be done in. Yes, and that's precisely why, I transitioned a handful of years ago from working with light workers and healers to then speaking only to these. It seems like what's this, 180-degree
yeah.
divergence from the segment of leaders that I was supporting prior to the Paz Project, moving into corporate and business moguls and public and political figures and things of this nature. That's a way to, again, like shrink that timeline and make that greater impact, is by us going to each of us individually in the work that we're doing. I'm not suggesting everybody do what I'm doing, but each of us individually going to the highest level of impact that we understand, sort of that trickle down. What's the source of this quote finger problem, right? That I can serve, that I know how to align to its highest purpose. And so for me, that is, again, you've got a finite amount of time on this earth to make an impact or do some shit, right? And so for me, that's it. And again, I'll say this, it doesn't even have to be a pure, sometimes we can get stunned by some of this language of this pure intention, right? Because I'll tell you what, as committed, devoted as I am to inner peace being the place that leaders lead from, myself included, right? As devoted as I am to this, I also like a whiskey every now and again, and to live the personas fun time, good time life. So yeah, it doesn't have to be this, holy white light, right, white robe wearing situation for us to have this altruistic activation be the place that we come from in the work that we do. So I say that because that's another one of these barriers that I'm finding, right, for people who have hustled to get where they're at. It's not. No, that's the dichotomy, or that's the two sides of the continuum, if you will. Like, oh, okay, well, to live from a place of inner peace, I gotta sell it all, get rid of it all, leave my corporate career that I've spent 40 years building, yeah, and just go live, in solitary
in an ashram in the jungle somewhere.
Yeah. No, okay, but then the other one is, oh, well, then I forget what I was even saying, but it's that dichotomy, like, well, I can't actually, why even try to be good, be altruistic when I actually like, all my cars and all my houses and all my whiskeys and all my cigars and stuff. And I'm just being dramatic, a little dramatic when I say this. But there's a sweet spot. That's the paradox that all of us are a part of. And so it's not, about staying away from one and all living entirely as the other. It's about finding each individual's paradoxical sweet spot where peace is that center point and good works can be done and fun can be had, and we remain in alignment to our purpose, or what matters, to use your phrase, matters most to us.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you, Colette. Tell the listeners how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I would direct listeners to thepazproject.com. And just I'll add to that, Paz, P-A-Z, is the Latin word for peace. And so, yeah, check out thepazproject.com. And there are other ways on that website to get in touch if you'd like to continue this conversation in some capacity.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for hosting.
Limitless is produced by Neil Haley, with music by Danny Columbi. I'm Tracy Poizner. If you're an innovator, a business leader, or a high performer with deep curiosity about the uncharted reaches of your own potential, visit tracypoizner.com for an accelerated pathway toward unimagined achievements and legacy milestones. I'll look forward to meeting you.